Bonjour, everybody. Hi, welcome to Star Nation's Communications from Home show on Star Nation's organization main fan page. This is a live stream show that you're watching, and this is a special show that my co host and I, Mervyn Kelly, have been doing since I believe January. Um, he and I had realized a while ago that we had something in common, and that something in common is that he and I take care of our moms in our homes. Mervyn lives in the UK. I live in the US. And we were working on some stuff for our live stream shows. And it just happened that it was a time that we both needed to attend to our moms. And so we took a break and came back and finished what we were doing. But that was the first time that I had realized that Mervyn was taking care of his elderly mom. And that was the first time he knew that I was taking care of my elderly mom. And so we just kind of sat and chatted for a while about our experience. And we thought, well, maybe people in Star Nation's community would be interested in sharing our experience. And so, well, good afternoon, Mato. It's good to have you here. I'm glad you're able to join us. I missed you guys this morning, although I was sleeping when I got up. I thought, man, I really missing that morning coffee time with you guys. But anyway, this show is about caring for your elderly parent, and this month's topic is transitions, and the transitions are the ones that are the hardest to talk about, and sometimes the hardest to bring into a regular conversation, right? And so here, I'm going to bring Mervyn on. Hang on just a second. We're going to bring him on. Hello, Mervyn.
Hello.
I forgot to tell everybody that you are the host, the host of From Star to Stone, the second Tuesday of every month here at Star Nations, and so that's how we kind of we were working on stuff from Star to Stone when we realized that we had this mom thing in common.
Yes, this crazy life.
Ain't that the truth? When in one of our shows, it might have been the very first one, we had talked about how making the decision, and it wasn't even so much a decision as a known fact that we would be taking care of our moms in our homes. And Mato is saying hello to you.
Hello, hello.
Um, that it changes your life. And actually, it's one of those transitions for us, right? Early on, when we made the conscious decision, we're moving mom in, because it changed our lives.
Yes, it was. It in some ways it's a difficult thing to describe, rather than a change as but more of a. For me, it was a natural progression. This was what was going to happen, and this was what was going to continue to happen. This was my role. This was what it is going to be.
Yep. There's and I agree, because that was, culturally speaking, for me, because I'm the oldest daughter, the oldest and only daughter, that the responsibility of the parents would eventually fall to me. And so, I knew that was going to be my responsibility at some point. Of course, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you don't really think about that, right? You just live your life, and then when my parents hit their 80s is when things started getting, quote unquote, real, and having to take them to doctor's appointments and making sure that their refrigerator was cleaned out. That was another thing. It's like all those little subtle hints that things are changing for them. And And so I always knew as well. I knew. Mervyn, every morning I do a card draw, and I'm using the Jamie Sams cards, the Sacred Path cards. And this is a card that has come up a couple times for us. And I'm going to show this. I'm going to take my name off from there. It's a little bit easier. And it's the rites of passage. It's about change. And here, if I can do this, it might make it a little bit easier. The artwork on here is really telling about what we're talking about right now, because it's the pathway, it's the life walk, the earth walk. In the beginning, there you can see down in the corner the little cradle, birth cradle, baby cradle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the red road.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And then you see the person walking the red road, and then heading up a hill. And at the top of that first hill is a scaffolding, and the Native Americans west of the Mississippi call it a sky lodge, and that is where the physical body is laid when somebody dies. And in the depiction, in the picture, you see that kind of looks like smoke or something rising. It's the spirit leaving the body. And then further on up the hill, you see the road turns blue. It's a blue path.
Yeah.
And the Seneca believe that the blue path is the path of spirit, the spirit path. And so we've gotten this card, I don't know, maybe 3 times, and this is the 4th time this morning this card has come up. And I thought I'd bring it with because it really does kind of show the progression of it all, and that really we're all on the same path, right? We're all doing the same walk.
Yeah. One way or another, we're all doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by us taking care of our moms, or anybody taking care of their parent, their elderly parent, or a disabled sibling, or even a disabled spouse, it comes from the heart. It comes from the heart to do that kind of service, and I think that's what you were talking about when you're saying you're trying to describe to us that it wasn't really a life change or a transition for you; that it was natural.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't really a choice. It was exactly what was meant to happen.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so here we are. How many years have you been taking care of your mom?
Many, many years.
Many years. Let's see. Mine is. I think she moved in. I mean, um, I'd always taken care of the parents, but they always had their own home, their own space. Mom moved in with us in 2012, and so she's been here for 6 years. In my care, as I'm the primary caregiver, and so she's gone from that first couple years that she moved in. She's always had arthritic pain, always. That's always been there. But the first couple of years, she did her own laundry. She made her own breakfast. If I wasn't home, she would do her own lunch. I always made supper. I cleaned her 2 rooms, and she was a little bit more independent. Over the years, it's progressively gotten more and more that I'm doing more and more for her, to the point that I think it was yesterday. Yesterday, it looked like she was having a problem cutting part of her supper with a knife. And so I turned and asked her if she wanted me to help her with that. It looks like you're having some trouble with that. I knew I overstepped something because I got the mom look.
Oh yeah, don't be getting that. No.
I got the mom look. I can still do this. When I need help, I will let you know. Okay. All right. Be sure you do that before somebody gets hurt with that knife. Um, so so we're still progressing, is what I'm trying to say. We're still progressing with it, and the transitions piece. You've said you've taken care of your mom for years. As a caregiver and somebody who's bearing witness to her changes, um, the mile markers, because don't you feel like we've seen some of those
Oh,
as
yes.
progress, right? What
Oh,
are some of
yes.
your mom's milestones that she?
It's the the when you look back at what she could do some years ago and what she can do now, what um, I mean, the last. See, I forget what year I'm in and what years of how many years have passed since certain events. They all sort of blur into a homogenous, massive experience.
Mhm.
Um, but so several years. Okay, now let me see if I can get this straight in my head. Was it about 10 years ago, or was it a bit less? Which can it might have been a bit less. Anyway, she had um, a she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she went through a double mastectomy. That was a big do. And then I think it was about 4 or 5 years after that, she had another major um, surgery where she was, I'm going to put it the polite way and say she was completely replumbed. Um, that was another big one. And on both of those occasions, there was a distinct step down in physical ability.
Mhm.
Um, Mentally, she there was no change. She was just as sharp as she ever was.
Mhm.
But those are the two main events of the past 10 years or so that have been the most telling. The rest of the time, it's more of been a gradual progression where you can't say there's been a distinct change from one point to another. It's just that steady, slow curve into downwards from what physical ability she did have to what she's got now.
Mhm.
So it's been more that as a case, really.
Yes. Um, and I think for me, the gradual piece is sometimes harder to be with than the more dramatic or the major ones. She has fallen a couple of times and having not really hurting herself, but it's the couple days after where stiff and sore and
Hmm.
from the jarring and that kind of thing. Um, I don't know. Sometimes some of the things she just makes me laugh. She says, "I think this bathroom and I have a problem." I say, "What's that?" And she says, "This is where I always fall. I think that it has a problem with me." And it's the hardest room to fall in because it's the smallest. And try to get into the bathroom to help her. Um, it takes sometimes some ingenuity. Um, but anyway, I think it's those gradual changes that you talk about are sometimes for me the hardest when I realize that, oh, we just slid into another lessening of the life force, you know,
Mm.
and being aware of that. I think sometimes that emotionally, that is the harder piece for me, to watch the progression. And and really, it's a part of life. It's a part of the life cycle. There's really not much you can do other than to make them comfortable and to spend some time with them. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
and so for a culture, the Western culture, who thinks that we have to fix everything when something seems to be broken, or not right, we have to fix it. There's nothing to fix here.
No, you can't fix it.
No.
No, no, you really can't. You have to simply do exactly what you said. Make them comfortable, make them safe,
Mhm.
and just be there so that they're not on their own.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I just reminded myself of something. Um, one of the housekeeping items is I forgot to ask people to like and share. Oops. How did that happen? So those who are watching, if you wouldn't mind helping us out with this, is to like the broadcast and to share it. And even if you just want to share it to one person that you feel could this information could be helpful to, that's good. That is really very good. But if you could share it to your timeline or something like that, we would appreciate it. And the reason why we ask people to do that is because it's easier for people to find us because it helps us be in the news feed more often. And so you know what it's like when you're searching for your peeps and you haven't found them yet, or looking for some spiritual information and you know it's out there, but you're trying to find it. And so this is, to me, it's just a way of being helpful to other people. And so I'm going to share mine too, and I'm going to share it to my timeline and just say we're live streaming. Um, and to join us. There we go. We'll post that. Thanks for doing that. We appreciate your help with that. So back to what we were talking about. The the progression, that gradual progression, and really not being able to change it or stop it. Do you have, Mervyn? Do you have anything that helps you be with that in the best way that you can?
More so these days, definitely. With you know, with the the druid path that I am on in particular. Prior to that, it was very much a case of just being able to accept this is how things are,
Mm,
and if and gradually the next year things were just a little bit worse. Just being able to accept it. It's There's nothing I can do about it. It is happening. I have to accept it. I can't fight it. I can't rail against it and pound my fists against the wall to make things any different. That doesn't work. It,
does-
it's accept it and work with it in the best way that you can. It's as simple as that. Um, Now mm, I have meditations. I do meditate, and I've got lots of crystal and stone friends all around me. Um, Getting time to meditate and everything is always a little more difficult to find the time than it always seems that there is. Um, so I have tools that I can work with when I can find the time to work with them. But the biggest one for me was always that being able to accept and just work with things as best I can.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I have to agree with that. Mine is, the meditation, like you said, when you can carve out some time for it, um, it's important to do. But I also find, I don't know about you, but if I'm quiet, if I sit down for any amount of time, I'm going to fall asleep.
Mm.
And so sometimes finding the balance is sometimes taking that nap, or like I did this morning, is I I did mom's breakfast, did our morning thing, and I went back to bed. Paul took care of the mid morning snack and getting lunch started. And so I was able to catch a couple of hours of more sleep, which is very helpful. And I get to do that maybe once a month or once every couple months or so. Um, but you're right. A lot of it has to do with prayer. A lot of it has to do with grounding, to be grounded and in your body, in your body. So,
Definitely.
yeah, because you are literally the connection between your elderly parent and the physical world. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
if you're not grounded, you're really not helping.
No, it's a difficult, or it can be a difficult road to navigate, to be that, because you can be a bit floaty from time to time, especially if you're tired.
Yes.
Um, you can get a bit irritable, especially when you're tired. Um, and it's no use. I mean, it's natural to, when you are irritable and you do talk back a little bit sharply, you can easily feel, a little bit guilty, and
Mhm.
be a bit hard on yourself. But again, that doesn't help anything either. You've just got to accept that you are feeling irritable, catch it, and
Do something about it.
do something about it.
Yeah, go take a nap if you can. Um, Sometimes it's hydration. If you're not hydrated enough, that can make a big difference. Uh, if you're not, sometimes without mom being here, Paul and I would not be on such a schedule of meals, because she has a glucose issue. And
Hmm.
so we have to have meals at a certain time and snacks at a certain time to help keep her glucose more stable. And so we find that I feel like we're always eating, um, even though we're not hungry, because our
Yeah,
metabolism is different than hers. And so, but I find that we are also eating more healthily because of that. It's not always the fast food. It's not always, um, gee, it's 8 o'clock, we haven't eaten yet, kind of
yeah,
thing, the way it used to be. And so, to take care of yourself the best you can. Um, the other day, Paul had switched from third shift. That would have been working what, they went from 12 hours to 8 hour shifts. So anyway, he went from third shift to second, and it was his first night doing seconds. And I decided I was going to stay up. It was like 10 o'clock anyway, 10:30. By the time I was completely done with what I was doing, and I thought, I haven't watched any television. I could maybe catch a little TV, eat some popcorn, wait for him, see how his night went. Well, that was great, except we started talking, and before we knew it, it was like 12:30, and I had to be up at 6 something. And by the time I got into bed and falling asleep, it was after 1. So I did it to myself, is what I'm saying. There's nobody to blame. I did it to myself, and I was so tired the next day and the day after. And I literally fell asleep on and working. I had my computer on and I was searching for something and found myself on the down button and it was scrolling. I had fallen asleep and realized I missed mom's 3 o'clock snack. I jumped up and got her snack for her. But anyway, taking care of yourself and trying doing the best you can helps. Um, but with the emotional piece for me is really being in contact and talking to my spiritual team quite a bit about that, you know, helping me to work through that. Um, and sometimes it is taking a break. It is doing the negotiations with my brothers to come and take a weekend. And sometimes I have to literally tell them, I need this emotionally, I need it. I gotta get out of here for a few hours. And and sometimes you have to be brutally honest in order to get something done. And so taking the breaks when you can get them, and sometimes you have to make sure that you do that to give yourself that break. Otherwise, you're going to break.
Eventually, yes.
Have you ever been close to that breaking?
Yes. Not so much. That was kind of a good while ago, but um, hmm, I wouldn't say with mum and her care that close to breaking point, really. We've had some difficult times and some extraordinarily stressful times, and everything that those entail. My breaking point was long before taking care of mum, and that was a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
But with mum and taking care of her and knowing this is what I am doing, this is what I have to do, this is what is needed, this is my role, I know what I'm doing. As difficult as it is, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can cope with that. Um, Difficult, more the worst times are yet to come. It's probably the whole point of the show.
We're building up to it
Slowly.
slowly.
Um, so I can't honestly say that with within my role now that I have been close to breaking, because I've been able to accept my role fully. I can accept each progression as it happens, and that's just given me the ability just to keep plodding on each day, one step at a time, then the
Mm-hmm.
next step. You know, there's
Yeah.
always bumps in the road.
Yeah.
There always will be, and that's fine as well,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all they are. They're just bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that it's time to take a break when I feel like it in Groundhog's Day movie.
Mm,
And, and one day is exactly the same as the next. And it's like, what day is it? Wait a minute. I don't even know what day it is.
mm.
you
Oh,
know?
I had that this morning when I woke up. I wasn't even sure didn't know what day it was. Um, and there are times when, I mean, these days it's easier in some respects because although I used to work, I was working full time, which could could be anything up to 60, 65 hours a week, and everything else here, which
Right.
was another full-time job.
Right.
It was very difficult.
Mhm.
But since I've gone part-time and I'm only doing 3 days a week now at work,
Mhm.
which it's a funny thing to say. It's only 3 days when you actually fit in a full week's work
In 3 days.
into 3 days and then carrying on. But now I'm only doing 3 days, so it is much better by a huge amount. And taking a break, I am extraordinarily lucky. I do get to take a breaks when I come visit Tracy.
Mhm.
When there are little, maybe a day here or there through the year where there's a crystal and rock show on, and I might get a chance to go and visit and things like that. So there are small moments and some big times when I get to take my break. So
Mhm.
I am lucky. I do know how lucky I am with that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that happened recently that has been so very helpful, and I wasn't, and it's always been here. It's just that I finally had um, start. I think I'm pretty much through the integration piece of all the changes that happened in 27 to me personally, right? And is that I started doing the morning card draw and doing a live stream here on Star Nation's main fan page. I'm using just a native live stream. I'm not doing the Be Live app, and it's put a little bit and some more structure to my morning. Unfortunately, but I feel like because I do the live stream from up here from at the academy, and I moved my studio to the academy, and so I'm just not going downstairs to my office to do the shows. I'm actually leaving the house and I'm going a block
Mm.
up to the academy. But it is that mini break that I get um, to put a little balance into the day, because it feels like I'm actually coming to work. And um, I don't know, it sounds kind of strange when I say it that way, but it's that mini break that gives my day a different kind of flow to it and kind of breaks things up a bit. It's not a constant, right? And it's helpful to mom too, believe it or not. Because when I get back and I go in her room and I say, okay, I'm back. Do you need anything? And she goes, no, but how'd it go? So it gives her something else to talk about. Because technically, I'm really the only person she sees.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives us something else to talk about. How's the studio going? Did you get the sound working?
Mm-hmm.
She always thinks I have audio problems, and so it gives us something else to talk about. And yeah, so it gives a little bit of a mini break. Now, Mervyn, one of the other things that I know for sure is that taking care of mom has brought all the tools that I either brought in with me or I have learned along the way um, to be employed, to be used in her care. Whether it's hands-on, whether it's stones and crystals, whether it's um, talk therapy,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, it really has drawn out, if not the whole thing, but bits and pieces of those tools and those gifts, and some that I didn't even know I had
Mm.
until I had to use them. Do you have anything like that?
Oh yeah, constantly,
Yeah.
constantly. I'm often surprised at some of the issues that come out and the information that somehow appears in my brain from seemingly nowhere. That I mean, again, just recently, Mum had developed a small mark on her cheek, and it was getting a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And when she's ready, she'll say something. But you just know that with Mum, when she's ready to say something, she'll say it, and you can't push it. You know.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, she said to me, "Do you know what skin cancer looks like?" As soon as she mentioned this, and I looked. I said, "No, that's nothing. You're fine. Here, I'll put a little bit of tea tree oil on it. If you're really worried, talk to the doctor." Because she had an appointment a couple of days later anyway. So she put the tea tree oil on it. She spoke to the doctor. The doctor just didn't even make any noticeable mention of it at all. And a few days later, after that, it was gone. So um, little incidents like that are constantly happening. What what do you think to this? Oh, well, it's just this, blah blah, and whatever, and it just stuff just comes out of my mouth,
Mm-hmm.
um, from seemingly things that I didn't even realise that I was aware of myself. Stones and crystals. I mean, she's got her own sets of stones and crystals now at Tracy Centre, and I've I've given her. She's We tried various conventional things through the doctor, for various um, conditions and all sorts of things along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Reiki's come in, and she regularly say to me, "I'm going to need Reiki today," as in get yourself prepared because this is happening. And then other things like the two surgeries that she developed shingles immediately afterwards because of the stress on her immune system. And the first time was bad, the second time was worse. And because of that, there's severe nerve damage in her shoulder and her right arm.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, I mean, was this last year or the year before? As I say, the years blur.
Yeah.
Um, it was the year before last. It was definitely the year before last. Um, all of a sudden, I seemingly from nowhere again started looking into essential oils and various blends and
Mm-hmm.
the uses thereof, and uh, from there came a blend of oils that has been the best um, relief from the nerve pain that she's been feeling for, well, since whenever since she's had it. So you've got tools already. You've gathered tools along the way,
Mm-hmm.
and then tools seem to be thrown at you just when you need them the most.
In the nick of time, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm still looking for that St. John's wort oil. Yeah, I have where I would normally get it from. They don't have it, so
No, it's a tricky one to get hold of.
well, it must mean that it's not quite time to bring it out because when I need it, I'm sure it's going to it'll be there.
Hmm.
When we need it. Um, yeah, those. I was just thinking as you were talking. I was just thinking about how it brings out both the best in us.
Hmm.
We rise to what we can do, and we sometimes shock ourselves, like, "Hey, I didn't know how to do that," you know. And other times, it also brings out the worst in us. And I think that that is part of our growth and the reason why we're having this experience with them, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so that in itself is a gift, just that alone. Um, but I think that for me, the one time that mom said to me, we were talking, and I said, Mom, we spend a lot of time talking about in the past. A lot of time in the past, we talk about your memories of your younger years, raising a family. We talk about things that occurred, people that have already crossed over, that already have passed away. We spend a lot of time with them. He said, we very seldom spend with anything in the present time other than politics and the weather, you know, and get my mom going on politics.
Mm.
And and I said, but we never talk about anything about the future. And she sat there for the longest time, and she says, well, she says, my memory is really, really good for things in the past. It's like they just happened yesterday. And so I remember them quite clearly. Things that happened today, she says, I can't even tell you what I had for breakfast. It's not important for me to remember what I had for breakfast, because there's nothing really wrong with her memory at all. And then she says, why would I talk about the future when I have no future? What do you say to that? It's like, because you can't do the platitudes and say, oh, Mom, yes, you do. No, she knows. She knows. And trying to be open to that, and being honest about it. The first time she said that to me was, or the first time she said to me, well, I woke up this morning. I guess I get another day. I don't know why. I'm ready anytime. And those kinds of things that she says to me. The first few times, like I said, your mind kind of goes one of these things. What do you say?
Yeah.
But you also have to be respectful. They know more about what they're going through than we do.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. They it's because they're living it, aren't they? We're still, as much as we do, we're still on the sideline.
Yes. Yeah. And somewhat, we wear many hats. We're the witness. We're the cheerleader. We're the coach.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're the teacher.
Yeah.
Many times we're still the student. And still we also play those roles of son and daughter.
Yeah.
So we have many hats with one person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also wear those the robes, if you will, of the healer or
Yeah.
the energy worker. Yeah.
Yeah. It's difficult to know which one to put on at sometimes as well.
Mhm.
There are. You think you're one thing and then you're another, then you're the next thing, and that's only in an hour. You can be changing your hats with 20 times in an hour.
Turn around really quickly.
Yeah.
And you spin around and it's like, all right, now I'm the chef. Okay, so what would you like for supper tonight?
Yes.
And that's
What?
even hard in itself, because their appetite isn't what it used to be. They will ask for something, you make it, you put it in front of them, and they have no appetite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And trying to actually, I just ask Mum to do one thing. It's all I ask for her to do, and that is just decide what she wants for dinner. That's all I want. Just
And sometimes
decide that. please don't make me think about that again. So yeah, it's
Oh my gosh. And something happens at my house quite often, Mervyn. And it's always been this way, but especially when with my parents, living at home with them when I was a child, it's always been there. But with mom, she just turned 99, right, on the 8th. And, um, and so we spend quite a bit of time with spirits. And my mom has always been able to see them. Um, she's always been clairvoyant, but she's never really embraced it. She's actually hidden it many, many times. And and so these days, and well, actually, since she moved in, even before then, she would be telling me about, oh yeah, I saw this or I saw that, and so one of the other things that I do is as I try to understand who they are, and if they are not meant to be there, then we have to ask them to leave, tell them to leave. And I have protection around the house. So I know that those that come through are really meant for her highest good, right?
mhm,
Whatever that means. And so she says to me on many occasions, almost not every day, but several times during the week, do you think you could light some cedar for me? And see, we use cedar like many Western nations tribes use white sage. That's how we use cedar. And so, and she's used to that. If I lit white sage for her, it'd be okay, but it wouldn't have the same meaning for her.
mhm,
And so I'll do that, and the word is smudging a room. She uses the term, and that's the term I grew up with, is smoking the room. And so I will do that for her, and once that's done, I'll ask her, so what was going on that you asked me to do this for you? I'm happy to do it, but what's going on? And she'll tell me what she saw or who was there, that sort of thing. And it's happening more and more often. And one day she says to me, she says, I just don't understand it. They're very persistent. Why do they always come? Why are they always here? And she's getting a little irritated with it, right?
mhm,
And I said, well, first of all, Mom, you've always been able to see them, always. So why do you think it would be any different now? And then we talked about when a baby is born, like when a spirit comes into the physical world, that they're still really attached to spirit. And babies see spirit all the time. We think that all the cooing and stuff is and smiling and that kind of thing is because they're doing it for us.
mm,
No, they're doing it for the spirits in the room that they know.
mhm,
And so they're still really connected to spirit as babies. And so on the other side of the spectrum, and you're transitioning out of your physical life, that you're able to sense and be with spirit more often because you can sense and feel them more
mhm.
because you're
Yeah.
spending time with them, right? And so we had that discussion, and she was agreeable to it. She goes, "That makes a lot of sense." Right. So the day progresses. I'm turning down her bed for her to go to bed, right? And she says to me, well, I was thinking about what you said earlier today, and she goes, it makes a lot of sense. And she says, I just wish they would stay put where they belong. Why do I need to be with them? And, and it was like somebody showed me a Polaroid picture really quickly, flashed it in front of me, and it was a picture of her in their space.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're saying, here she is again. Somebody walk her, go take her back to her own room. And I shared that with her, and she starts laughing, and she says, so they're probably saying the same thing about me. I wish you would stay home. And so the next day we had a nice time to be able to talk about that piece. But that was the first time, Mervyn, that was the first time I ever realized that for those who are, in my culture, we say we take 4 years before you transition out, right?
Hmm.
And so the closer and closer you get to the transitioning out, you spend more and more time with spirit. You start um, moving away from things in the physical world and spending more time with spirit. And so I never gave it a thought that if you believe spirit or the next dimension is right next door in a parallel to you, and if you're able to move between that veil very very easily, why wouldn't you be crossing into someone else's living space,
Yeah,
you know? And they're saying, there she is again.
yeah.
What is it with this lady? So anyway, I thought I would share that with you. I don't know. Have you ever heard anybody talk about that before?
Not in that, not like that. No, no. That's fascinating and makes so much sense as well.
Mhm.
When you say it like that, it's pretty obvious, really, when you just think about it.
Yeah. When they showed me, it was like an old Polaroid that they kind of flashed in front of me. I was turning down her bed and they showed it to me, and it was like, I, I never thought of it that way. But why wouldn't it be that way? Why
Mm.
couldn't it be that way?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You know, because we put so much emphasis on what we see here on the earth plane and experience that when people are crossing over, right? Um, but why wouldn't we spend time in their world too? Yeah. See, that was one layer I never would have thought of. You wouldn't have gotten it had it not been for mom.
No, no. I mean, here in my little corner of the world, um, the native spiritual paths are say very much the same thing, um, but it's only the past 200-300 years or so where the old the old beliefs were started to come back, um, and more so now. I mean, the prior when they first started looking back at our old ways back in the 1700s, I think. It was very much in a through a Christian viewpoint,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was unusual in and of itself. That they actually started looking, but the old ways, the old stories, the old songs, of which there are not that many songs, but men we still have some of the stories that the past 50 years or so, there's been a huge resurgence. That's a good word. I'm going to write that down. Huge resurgence in looking and bringing our old ways, our old beliefs back. I mean, I say that they're always there within us, and now we're actually actively trying to reconnect with them. And so they're all that old knowledge is there, and we're trying to access it, but we're still a Catholic / Church of England country.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those ideas are not so much talked about, apart from, well, you see them all on TV, the spiritualists and the,
Yeah.
you know, this that and whatever else,
Mhm.
um, which is a different side of things. It's not what we're talking about now. It's a whole different thing.
Mhm.
So I think the point that I'm eventually going to get to is here in my little house. Um, we really didn't discuss things. I mean, mum and dad were members of the church back in Manchester, Church of England, that is. Mum was in the choir. Uh, Dad was I can't remember what she said he was now, but anyway. So they were active within the church itself.
Mhm.
But when we ended up over here on the East Coast, my little school that I went to was connected with the church. It was a Church of England school, so we had the usual um, major festivals like Easter and Christmas and the Harvest Festival when we all traipsed off up to the church and had
Mhm.
the services and everything. But other than that, it didn't really. It's not discussed. It's not talked about. We don't deal with it. We don't. Not in so many words, anyway. But
Mhm.
the um, mom herself, I wouldn't suggest that she's clairvoyant, but there's been a couple of spirits that she's met. One of them being a brother
Mhm.
after he was killed in 1946, and my dad.
Mhm.
So I know she's open to it, and she's always been open-minded. And the more she's always been open-minded, but the each day and each year she becomes that bit more open-minded, especially when I said, you know, when I first learned Reiki, when first started bringing stones and crystals in, you know, when I first went to her, I said, "Hey, Mum, I'm going to be a druid," and she looked at me and said, "Just don't join a cult." And my only reply was that I'm more likely to start a cult than to join one, which she agreed with. Um, but so she's open-minded,
Yeah.
and so rather than have those discussions, it, it's ever present in my head, but we don't talk about it really.
Mhm.
Um, there has been the odd time here and there when she has brought it up to a certain extent. When I'm gone, you can do such and such, or you can do this, or
Mhm.
there's the odd time here and there when it happens, especially when she's actually, it's a strange thing when she's feeling either really good or really bad. You know, she's either being really positive or, you
Mhm.
know, you know, here's your way out kind of thing, which is both and not for, for myself particularly helpful. Um, so
Now, see where we speak of spirit quite a lot, but we what with a conversation that was very difficult to have was about her leaving and what did she want done for her funeral. I just always assumed it would be a more traditional dream drum ceremony, and if I had to make a guess, that's the guess I would have taken. But after many, 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 many times of trying to discuss it, um, she finally said to me, "No, I want this to be easy on you and your brothers." I don't want it to turn into a big drama affair where people are arguing over how it should be done. She wants more of a Lutheran because she's been Lutheran most of her life. Um, that's what she wants done. She says, but you know what you can do for me? You can make sure I have that bit of blue cloth. You can make sure I have my bowl, and you can make sure I have my moccasins on. But don't put me in a traditional dress. I've got a blue dress in there that I want, and um, she says that, and if it's just family, that's good enough. That's all I need. That's all I want. I don't want this to be hard on you. But it took me time and time and time and time again to talk about it. And there's another piece to that about when the time comes, because I can sense that sometimes she's about the unknown. She's nervous about the unknown, like anybody would be. I think that's pretty common, you know. And sharing with her what was told to me about when my dad crossed, that it's like throwing back the covers and getting out of bed. It's when they come to get you. And I said, and who would you like to come get you? If you had a choice, of who was going to come get you and take you back to God, the Creator, who would that be? And she says, well, my dad, of course. And I said, well, okay, so if Grandpa shows up, know that it's okay to go with him. I said, but chances are it's going to be your mom, my grandma. And I said, and if she shows up, please go with her. So, because I'm here with her all the time, and I had to have the same talk with my dad too, the same kind of discussion. My brothers won't do it. They wouldn't do it. So I'm left with the more difficult discussions to have, and it probably is because I have the ability to do that without being emotionally devastated.
Mm.
Is to be that person for her to talk about those things. Culturally, she didn't want to talk about it because we don't plan those things. You don't buy the plot ahead of time. You don't buy the tomb, the headstone ahead of time. You don't arrange any of those things ahead of time.
No, same here. But recently, I mean, I suppose in a case or two that, everything could be, people had plots and all that, that was from people that could afford it. Otherwise, it was just a matter of when the time came, then you had to have the mad scramble to get everything in place and organised and everything. But now it's changing, and Mum's dealt with it herself. She's made all the arrangements. She knows what she wants. She knows what she wants doing, and she's done it.
Wow. Good for her. What is your mom's name, by the way?
Olive.
Olive. After all this time, I've always called her Mervyn's mom. Olive. Well, good on Olive. Good for her. That's, for me, that is being a yes woman. That is being somebody who knows herself.
Oh, yeah, she always has done. Yeah. She's always been that person.
A wise woman.
Oh, yes. Far wiser than I'll ever be.
Well, good for her. But, I think that when you talked about the gradual progressions and the changes that way, I think that those gradual being witness to them in some ways helps us prepare for that ultimate transition in many ways, because you and I both know that it's going to be a difficult time for us when it happens because they've taken front and center stage of our lives for a lot of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they're physically not with us, because they'll always be with us spiritually, but when they're physically not with us, sometimes I wonder if that's the piece that makes me most apprehensive. Because what is my life going to be like when she transitions? What is my transition going to be like?
Mm. And this is one of the things, I mean, this is what I said, when you first broached this as a subject was, I don't think about it.
Mhm.
I literally, it's not that I don't think about it, I literally cannot think about it because this has been my life for so long. It's been my role for so long. I don't, I literally do not know what comes after.
Mhm.
I just don't know. I don't know what or who I will be after that point.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. What's it going to be like to be able to say, "Okay, I think I'm going to go over here," and not have to have 2 days worth of planning to get it done, or to say I'm going to go on vacation or I'm going to take a few days off and not have to take a month to arrange, the care.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say it's even more fundamental than that. To say, what am I going to do when I get up in the morning?
Yeah, yeah, because so many ways. That's how I know what day it is what we have for breakfast. Oh, it's oatmeal day. It's like you're right. It's more fundamental than that.
It is everything, everything that everything that we do revolves completely around them.
Mhm.
After that, it's a whole can of worms that is best left sealed, really, for
Really?
me. Yeah, because I mean, I hit 50 this year apparently, and I'm not entirely sure how that happened, but apparently it is. Um, and I've taken care of mum for years, and on a good day or on a bad day, you can still see that there is years left in her. Even on the worst of days, you
Mhm.
just know that. So, I could be doing this for another 10, I could be doing it for another 15 years. Who knows? I don't know.
Right. Right. We
So
we don't know.
we don't know.
Yeah.
So, however long it may be, my own clock is ticking along just the same. And so, when this time that I'm still not thinking about actually comes along, then, I could be in my 60s.
Could be.
Yeah. And as much as I know that that's not particularly anything in and of itself, and, you know, we're all fitter and healthier than we used to be, and
Mhm.
90s and hundreds are still are now no big deal at all.
Mhm.
You still reach that point where you think, okay, I'm in my 60s, and I've been doing this for so long. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I,
we're not the same people we were when we started this. We're not. I mean, even if our moms weren't here with us, living with us, we would still be a different vibration that we were when 10 years ago.
Oh, definitely.
So in another 10 years, we'll have even more soul maturation, and who knows
I
what we're going
hope
to
so.
do at that point. I know it. It's not exactly a given, is it? And so, yeah, I, on the other hand, because my mom is so much older than yours, is that there's days when I think, yeah, yeah, she's still got it. She's still
Mm.
got that. But there's more and more days where I look into her eyes and I see um, her life force is just so much lower than it used to be. There's not much of a spark there, um, unless she's talking about politics. That's a whole different case. Um, and it takes her longer to bounce back from little things like shower days, um, and she's sleeping more.
Mm.
Not like she gets up and goes back to bed and sleeps for 4 hours. No, her cat naps are longer than 10 minutes. They're usually about 20 or 30 minutes now. Um, and so there's watching the what I call the decline, the life force getting lesser. And um, when you're in that position and you can sense it, you, I think it's better to notice the subtle things and take those into consideration than to wait for the and not have the blinders on or
Mm.
not look. Because you know what happens? The universe will send you a bigger look at this, and I don't want that. I'd rather look at and notice the smaller things and say, okay, how do we do this one? How do we be with this one? And so that's where we just do the best we can. We just do the best we can. We don't have a choice.
No, none. It's all we can do. Best we can.
Mhm.
That's it. You know,
Yeah,
and
when you guys over there say in the UK, give it a go.
oh yeah, give it a go. We'll give it a go.
Yeah, and here it's like take your best shot and see what you can do. Um, so, I don't know if we've been helpful at all to our audience. I hope so. Sharing our individual experience and the things that have helped us. Um, I do know one thing for sure, Mervyn, is that when that time comes, whenever that is, that the can of worms is about to be opened, you can always call me, and
Thank you, Neshi.
we can always have a chat, and we can always, you know, even if you need to come over the pond and skip over Michigan and skip over the smaller pond and come to Wisconsin, and you're always welcome.
Thank you. As you know, you are here.
Yeah, I want to. I want to see what it's like. I want to see that beach that you keep taking pictures of. So, do you have any words that you want to share with our audience?
Just do the best you can and don't worry about getting it wrong. You know, you learn more by getting it wrong than you do by getting it right. So
Mm-hmm.
um, just keep going, just one step at a time. Um, Reiki is good. Stones and crystals are good. Essential oils are good.
Yes.
Meditation is good.
Yes.
Prayer is good. Talking is good. Sitting and being with who you're caring for is good.
Yes.
So just do all of those and you won't go far wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I agree. I agree. And I think I would add to that is that you have everything that you need right at your fingertips. Everything.
Even if you don't know it.
Even if you don't know it, everything is right there. You even know all the right people right now. That if you're caring for somebody that is elderly or disabled, you have the people in your life right now. You already have the right people in your life that if you turn to them and ask them for help, they'll be there. So you have everything that you need right now. And just to remember that this was a part of your soul growth that you chose before you even got here. And so that's what I remind myself of when I have those bad days, those bad moments. Um, I get grounded and I remember. I say, okay, I remember that I chose this, and there's a reason why I chose it. There's a reason, and one day I will be fully clear on what that reason was. But from the moment right now, I need to get back in my heart, and I give myself an attitude adjustment. And before we go, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been with us and listening and who will be watching this recorded show. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And I truly hope that whatever Mervyn and I shared today is helpful to you. If you have any questions or would like to leave us a statement, you can always put it in the comments of the video and we will be sure to see them. Stephanie, thank you, Stephanie. It's so good to see you in the chat room, Stephanie. She says, you too have given me so many amazing questions. Thank you. You're welcome. And Mato is saying, great sharing, Neshi and Mervyn. And Mato is saying, thank you both. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And with that, thank you, Mervyn, for making the time to be with us. I know it's late there, and I don't know if you have to work tomorrow.
No, I don't work Mondays. Well, I work every day, but I don't have to go and drive a truck tomorrow, so it's all good.
Yeah, oh, good, 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 good. But I do appreciate you taking the time to be with us and to share your experience and sharing your wisdom with this, because that's the name of the game, isn't it? To be as helpful as we can to someone else.
Well, we give it a go.
We give it a go. So with that, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all those dads out there. Happy Father's Day to you. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And for those who come and join me for the card draw tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, that's 11 Eastern. And then I'll tell you tomorrow as we prepare for the coming week. With that, Bama Mina, we'll see you until.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.